Okay, interview with Mick Fleetwood, 6/10/87. That's the date today. Yeah. Okay. Hi, this is Dave Ross in the studios of KFMU, and we've got a real special guest in here today, Mick Fleetwood, who is in town with Mick Fleetwood Zoo. How's it going tonight, Mick?
Fine. It's lovely here.
So you're on tour with the zoo.
Yeah, we're doing a short tour through the mountains, whatever. Aspen and here and I've forgotten the names of the other places. And then we go to San Diego tomorrow, and then we end up playing in LA.
Okay, is that the big finale?
The big finale.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to start off with trying to kind of going through the history of where you're coming from. In July of 1963, you joined a band called the Shanes.
That's right, yeah.
And
God.
how was that band?
It was, what was it, a four-piece band, I think. No, five-piece band. We did a lot of stuff like Bo Diddley stuff and
covers, a lot of covers.
Yeah,
cover
we
songs.
we weren't writing stuff. There was one fellow in the band that just started to do some writing, and we never did an album, but we had a few singles out on EMI years and years ago.
Okay, yeah, that was like 1963.
Yeah,
went through middle of 65.
Right, we did fairly well. You know, we did fairly well around all the clubs and stuff. With basically when a lot of the Liverpool bands were doing real well, we vaguely represented sort of something from London.
So was
when
that
the
your
Yardbirds and people like that were going, but we were nowhere near as big as, say, the Yardbirds.
Was that your first professional band that you were in?
No, there was one before that. It was called the Senders, and we did a whole lot of sort of venture type stuff, you know, mainly instrumental stuff.
Okay, now from the Shanes, you moved on to the Bow Street Runners.
Yeah, that was my answer. The Bow Street Runners, actually, they won a program called Ready Steady Win, and in England there was a show called Ready Steady Go.
Sure.
Which was sort of, I think it was a live show a lot of the time. Anyhow, they had a contest, much like sort of Star Search, I suppose, you know. And they won that competition, and I was out of work, actually, and I answered an ad. This is sort of after their heyday, so to speak, and I was with them for a short while.
Okay, then that went from April of 65 to February of 66, and then you joined the Bs Lunars.
That's right, God, you've done your homework.
What are the Bs Lunars? What were they all about?
Peter Bardens was in a band called Camel later on. I played with Peter for many years. He, along with bass player called Dave Ambrose, who played with the Brian Auger Oblivion Express, with Rod Stewart, Peter formed a band called the Peter Bs, which was mainly did a lot of Booker T type stuff, organ instrumental. He was an organ player, keyboard, and that's where we first met Peter Green.
Okay.
And he joined the band, which at least is, in terms of relevance, that's where Peter first came into the picture. And that band went on, and I did a thing with a girl singer called Beryl Marsden and Rod Stewart for a couple of years. It was like 3 shows within one. It was, then after that...
Shotgun Express?
That was the Shotgun Express.
That was the Shotgun Express. Then you joined John Mayall's Bluesbreakers.
For a very short time, yeah. I was fired for drunken, disorderly behaviour. But no, me and John that's where I'd known John McVie for many years, and obviously by that time Peter Green was playing with John Mayall after Eric Clapton left. And they actually had a very fine drummer, still is, Ainsley Dunbar, who used to be in Journey, and he's just done the Whitesnake album, although there's some legal problems. I think he's suing them or something. But anyhow, he left, and they were looking for, quote, a more simplified type of drummer, which I am. And Peter suggested that I join, which I did for, I think, about 3 months or something.
Okay, and then Fleetwood Mac formed in 1967?
Yes, the summer of '67 at the Windsor Jazz Festival.
Okay.
Was our first gig. Just a 4-piece band at that point. And then later on, we added Danny Cowan, another guitar player.
And then later on, Stevie Nicks and Lindsay Buckingham,
later, yeah.
much later. That's why I was kind of curious about. Legend has it that you were in an LA studio and were checking out the facilities to do a solo album. Is that where you met Stevie Nicks and Lindsay Buckingham?
I didn't actually. I think I might have met Stevie, but what happened was that it was when Bob Welch was in the band, and we had a break in a rather lengthy tour, which we did. And I was looking for a studio, and some guy in the supermarket who I vaguely knew said, "What are you up to?" I said, "Well, actually, I'm looking for studios, pricing them out and so forth." He said, "Well, I'm doing PR for this studio, which turned out to be Sound City, where Stevie and Lindsay had worked with Keith Olsen." And I literally just put my groceries in the back of his car and went there, just on a whim.
That's when Stevie Nicks and Lindsay Buckingham were recording their second LP.
They had finished the album. The album had been out, and nothing had happened to it. And Keith just purely put on the tape and said, "Well, this is something I've done, recorded in this room, for basically just to demonstrate, the tape." And I remember at that point, Bob was seeming, you can tell when someone's not quite happy, and I know Bob very well, and I felt that something was brewing, which indeed it was, because at the end of the tour he said he wanted to leave. But I had heard this tape, and I remember specifically hearing Lindsay's. I've always had an ear out for really good guitar players, and
you two seem to click pretty good, huh?
Well, I just phoned back Keith Olsen. I said, "That tape you played me, what are they doing?" And he said, "Well, actually, they're not doing anything. They've been having a bit of a hard time of it." And I said, "Well, just ask them if they'd be interested in meeting and joining the band."
Cool.
And at that point, of course, I realized that Stevie was an intricate part of what they did, because they co-wrote a lot of the stuff, and Lindsay arranged a lot of the things at that point. That was it. We met for Christmas, and John and Christine liked the album that I played, of their music, and that was it.
That was it. If my facts are correct, the latest Fleetwood Mac album, Tango in the Night, is your 21st LP?
That I don't know. You probably are right.
That I'm including the History of the Vintage Years,
Great.
the Greatest Hits album, and the Black Magic Woman, which is a compilation of your first 2 U.S. albums. Just wondering, do you have a favorite Mac album that you enjoy?
I always think in terms of what an album did for the band and what the band was doing. This is outside of the music. I mean, I've always liked the stuff we do, although when you look back you can be objective and see what were stronger albums, It's not that you don't like them, it's just certain times you hit, especially with 3 people, which is inherent in Fleetwood Mac ever since Then Play On. There's been basically 3 different styles within a basic framework musically, which is very interesting. I think it makes for certainly an attraction that Fleetwood Mac has as a band, having those options open. I think is a relief to the ear, so to speak. So I would look at Then Play On as being a really important album for Fleetwood Mac, early Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Which creatively set the precedent that we were branching out from just being a blues band. I think a very good blues band, and Peter is a fantastic player, and certainly in those days when he was really active, which he's not now, unfortunately, there was no better player, in my mind, and so that sort of pointed the direction of where the band was going to go. The next time that happened on a major level would be the Tusk album. That the fact that we did that album, that it was a double album, I think was a big signpost to the survival of Fleetwood Mac. not only creatively, which Lindsay was very instrumental in, if you like, nurturing and being concerned that we weren't going to just sort of coming off the Rumours album. You've got to be careful
Definitely.
that you don't
that
fall
was a
into
great
a rut.
album.
You know, and I think for those reasons, I think it's a great album anyhow. But over and above that, the reason that I think it's a very, very important Fleetwood Mac album, probably the most important one, as to the reason why we're still here and the reason we're still making records, you know, Tango in the Night and so forth.
Which, by the way, is an excellent album.
Yeah, we're all really
is.
excited about it. I think, you know, there's obviously been a break in between the albums, as there was with between Tusk and Mirage, but I think it's paid off. And I initially I was the worrying one, thinking that it'll be the kiss of death when everyone starts doing their own things. This was at the end of the Tusk tour.
And that's when Lindsay Buckingham released something. Stevie Nicks starts to do some
exactly,
solo
and I
stuff.
went off to Africa.
Yeah, you recorded your first solo album, The Visitor, in Ghana.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah,
With some
it was
African musicians,
wonderful.
kind of an early Paul Simon project.
Yeah, the concept was
Yeah.
definitely the same. I mean, it's great to hit, and I'm actually looks like I'm going to be able to re-release the album because it didn't sell at all. So I'm going to remix a couple of things and put it out, because I think there's, especially with the CD stuff, because there's some great stuff on that album, and it never got heard. So I'm hoping, looks like Warner Brothers was on RCA, but we're going to get it back off RCA, and they're going to re-release it, which will be fun.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience.
And then
it's great.
After that album, you released the Fleetwood Mac Zoo, I'm Not Me, in
That's
1983. Right. Was that the original formation of?
Yeah, what I was,
Zoo?
The original idea I had, I was going to go to South America and do a sort of visitor to type approach with musicians down there, and it just proved too costly, and so I spent a lot of money doing the one in Africa, with no regrets at all, because it was, as I said, a fantastic experience.
Is there some more Mick Fleetwood Zoo coming up?
Yeah, there will be. Because as you know, the band really has basically been together as we are now, with Billy Bennett, myself, Steve Ross. The only change has been in bass player Kenny, and Kenny's been with us for several years now. But the original bass player was George Hawkins, great friend of mine, who came to Africa with me, and so it's a real legitimate band, you know. The I'm Not Me album is not representative of what we're doing now at all, really. The stuff we're playing now is much more energized, I feel.
Okay, so those are future plans for Mick Fleetwood Zoo. Definitely an album coming out sometime.
We are definitely going to record, you know, when time allows. Obviously now I'm very involved with what Fleetwood Mac's doing, and
you going on tour pretty quick?
Not pretty quick, but sooner or later I hope we do.
Yeah.
We've just got to sort a couple of things out. Lindsay's finishing off some stuff he'd actually started before the Fleetwood Mac album, which took about 13 months to do. We're all ready to do it. Apart from we knew when we started the album that he was going to be doing what he's doing now. So we're sort of not wanting to get pushy, but the rest of us want to get out on the road.
Yeah. Now it sounds like you're extra busy these days. But are there any plans to do anything with other artists or any other groups?
Me personally,
little guest appearances or?
Not really. I don't. I play around in other bands, you know, jamming around, but I don't actually. No, there aren't any in the works. No.
Okay, so Mick Fleetwood Zoo in town in Steamboat Springs. What a treat!
Yeah, it's great.
Glad to have you here,
here,
and enjoy your stay. And what's the next stop after this?
San Diego.
San Diego. So you're out of Colorado pretty quick, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've actually been in and out since they've been here. When we played Aspen, I had to leave, unfortunately, the next morning.
You're cutting a video, is that right?
Yeah, I went back to do the video for 2 days. They were like 20-hour worth of working. It was just.
What video is that for?
It's for Stevie's new single, Seven Wonders.
Okay, so we'll be looking for that.
Stevie came back with me.
Super. So she's in town too, huh?
Yeah, she'll be out there tonight.
Great. Okay, well, thanks a lot for stopping in the studio, Mick.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Bye.